Panic attacks can come from out of the blue for no apparent reason, at times when you're not expecting them. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about why this happens and why panic attacks continue to happen. Hi everyone. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about panic attacks and why panic attacks can seem to come from completely out of the blue for no apparent reason at times when you're not expecting them. But before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I am a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those things out of the way, let's talk about panic attacks. Now, in a previous video, I've talked about a model for what happens in a panic attack. It's called the fear of fear model of panic. And I strongly encourage you to take a look at that video because this video won't make a lot of sense without understanding the fear of fear model of panic. But essentially what happens in a panic attack is that a person experiences some physical sensations of anxiety. And when they notice these physical sensations of anxiety, they experience what we call the uh-oh reaction, or they have a bunch of uh-oh thoughts. What if I'm having a heart attack? What if I'm having a stroke? What if I'm going crazy? Those types of things. Now, these thoughts can be really scary. And so what happens when a person starts thinking these things is they become really anxious. They hurry up or tense up to either get out of the situation or prepare themselves for what's happening. And the more anxious they get, the more they're hurrying up or tensing up, the more that increases the physical sensations of anxiety, and the cycle continues. And this is the fear of fear model of panic. Essentially, panic attacks are caused by a catastrophic misinterpretation of normal body sensations. So that's what occurs in a panic attack. But what can happen in panic disorder is that a person can have repetitive and repeated out of the blue panic attacks. Panic attacks that seem to come from out of nowhere for no reason. And because they're happening so unexpectedly, it can become really, really scary, and a person can become really apprehensive or fearful of when the next panic attack is going to happen. And that's sort of what happens in panic disorder, is that it's almost like the person develops a phobia of having another panic attack. So what I want to talk about is two features that tend to perpetuate panic disorder. Two features that tend to keep panic attacks happening over and over again. And the first of these is something we call anxious apprehension. Essentially, when a person is having repeated panic attacks, when a person has panic disorder, they become really fearful and really anxious of when the next panic attack is going to happen. So the way I like to explain it, it's almost like a person has like a time bomb set inside of them, except the timer is set to random, so they don't know when the timer is going to go off. They don't know when the time bomb is going to occur. And so what is really common in panic disorder is that people get really, really good at scanning their bodies for any signs of a panic attack. So a person becomes really, really in tune with what's happening inside their body. So they're more likely to notice when their heart starts to flutter a bit, or when their breathing changes, or when they're feeling a little bit lightheaded. So for most people, we may not even recognize that that's happening, but for a person with panic disorder, they are highly in tune with what's going on in their body. The metaphor I like to use to explain this is to imagine that I'm heading out for a walk. And just as I'm about to leave my front door to go on the walk, I hear on the radio that it's squirrel season. And squirrels are out and they're foraging for nuts. I don't think much of it. Maybe it's a slow news day, and I go out on my walk. Now, as I'm going on my walk, I'm walking through the forest. Off in the distance, I hear some leaves rustling. What am I likely to think it is? Well, I'm likely to think it's squirrels. And so I get these warm and fuzzy commune with nature feelings, and I go on my way thinking about the cute squirrels getting their nuts. But same scenario. Imagine that just as I'm about to leave my front door to go on to my walk, I hear on the radio that there is a mountain lion in my neighborhood, and they're warning people to be really, really cautious because this mountain lion has attacked a number of people. Now imagine how that's going to change how I approach my walk. As I'm walking through the forest, I'm more likely to be scanning for any signs of that mountain lion. So I'm much more likely to be aware and to recognize and hear when those leaves are rustling in the distance. And when I hear those leaves rustling in the distance, what am I likely to think it is? I'm likely to think it's a mountain lion. And how am I likely to feel? Really scared. I fear that I'm going to be attacked. It's the exact same situation. I'm walking down a path in the forest, and in the first scenario, I feel these warm, fuzzy, commune with nature feelings. In the second scenario, I feel terrified. This is kind of what it's like for a person with panic disorder. Whereas someone without panic disorder can feel these physical sensations of anxiety and may not care too much about it, may not think it's that big of a deal, or they may not even be aware of the physical sensations. Whereas someone with panic disorder is hyper aware and is much more likely to notice these physical sensations. And when they notice the physical sensations, they're much more likely to then become anxious about them because they interpret the physical sensations as dangerous. Just like the person in the second scenario interprets that the leaves rustling are a mountain lion. And so you have a couple of things that are happening here for a person with panic disorder, is that they're constantly scanning their body for physical sensations of a potential panic attack. But because they're so anxious about having another panic attack, they're more likely to experience some of these physical sensations. A person, because they're anxious about having a panic attack, is more likely to be tense. Their heart rate is more likely to sort of change or flutter. They may just be more highly tuned and highly anxious because they're overall fearful of a panic attack. And so you have these two things working together. One, I'm scanning my body for any signs of danger. And secondly, I'm more likely to experience some of these physical sensations because I'm anxious about having the physical sensations. Now, the thing is, our bodies are constantly in a state of flux. They're constantly changing and fluctuating. If it's warm outside and I go into my office where it's cool and air conditioned, there are going to be changes to my body's physiology. My heart rate's going to change, my respiration rate's going to change, the amount of blood flow to the surface of my skin is going to change, and these are all perfectly natural as a way of my body maintaining homeostasis. If I run to go catch the bus that I've almost missed, and I get onto that bus, that's going to lead to changes in heart rate, respiration rate, sweating. Our bodies are constantly fluctuating. Now the thing is, we can't possibly be aware of every single thing, every single factor that may be contributing to our body's fluctuations. And so my heart rate may increase because I had a cup of coffee 2 hours ago and the caffeine's finally kicked in. And so my heartbeat is beating a little bit faster. Now, I can't possibly be aware that my heartbeat is beating faster because I had a cup of coffee 2 hours ago. And so if I just notice my heart beating faster, it becomes easy for me to think, uh-oh, especially if I have a history of panic or panic attacks. So the body is constantly in fluctuation, but because I'm so anxious about having a panic attack, I'm scanning my body. I'm more likely to notice those fluctuations, and I'm more likely to enter that fear of fear cycle. So that's the first big maintaining factor in panic disorder. It's this anxious apprehension. It's this fear of when the next panic attack is going to occur. The second factor that tends to cause panic attacks to occur over and over again is avoidance. Now, avoidance can take a couple of different forms. Avoidance can take the form of avoiding situations or places or activities that may bring on these physical sensations, or where I'm fearful that I might have a panic attack. So if I'm fearful that I might lose control while I'm driving, I might avoid driving, or avoid driving on highways, or avoid driving in situations where I wouldn't be able to sort of pull over and get help. I may avoid situations where I may not be able to get help if I were to have a panic attack and wouldn't be able to get help right away. So I may avoid hiking or being far away from my home. I may avoid activities such as exercising, or I may avoid drinking coffee or having alcohol, because these activities and these substances may bring on some of the physical sensations of anxiety. And so I don't want that to happen, and so I avoid it. People can really focus on avoiding the physical sensations themselves. Like I said, people will avoid drinking coffee, they'll avoid exercise, they'll avoid things like really strong emotions. So a person may try to avoid getting too worked up, getting too anxious, getting too excited, because they're fearful that if they get too excited, their heart might start racing and it may trigger a panic attack. So this avoidance can take the form of avoiding the physical sensations themselves, but also avoiding situations that might bring on the physical sensations, or situations in which if I had a panic attack, it would be really bad. Now, the problem with avoidance is that, well, there's a couple of problems with avoidance. The first is that it makes a person's world a lot smaller. The more I avoid, the more I tend to have to avoid. And so I become very limited in terms of what I can do. If I can't drive long distances, or if I can't drive on the highway, or if I'm no longer able to play sports that I enjoy doing because I don't want to get my heart racing too much. I may really like coffee, but I'm avoiding drinking coffee because I'm afraid of how it will make me feel. So this avoidance can make my world a lot smaller. But the second factor that avoidance can, the second issue that avoidance can cause, is that it can perpetuate these panic attacks. Because what a person's doing when they're avoiding, the reason why a person's avoiding is because they're afraid of the physical sensations that these activities or these substances might bring on. And so by avoiding anything that might get my heart rate increasing, by avoiding anything that might make me short of breath, what I'm telling myself is those physical sensations are dangerous. They're threatening. And so I should avoid them, because if they do happen, something bad could happen. So by avoiding these physical sensations, the implicit message that I'm giving myself is that the physical sensations in and of themselves are dangerous, and there's something wrong with these physical sensations. And so that way, whenever these physical sensations come up, of course I'm going to feel anxious about them, because I've been trying to avoid them. And the reason I've been trying to avoid them is because I feel that they're dangerous. So it becomes this cycle where I'm avoiding because I fear that they're dangerous, but I fear that they're dangerous because I'm avoiding them. So this avoidance can really drive this anxiety. And the more I avoid, the more anxious I get about the physical sensation. And the more anxious I get about the physical sensations, the more likely I am to experience the physical sensations. And because of that that anxious apprehension I talked about earlier, I'm more likely to notice the physical sensations. And there you go. That's how I keep entering these anxiety and panic events. So the anxious apprehension and the avoidance work together to keep the panic attacks going, because what they're doing is they're reinforcing this idea that these physical sensations are dangerous. And so whenever I get those physical sensations, regardless of what caused them, I could have those physical sensations, like I said, because I walk inside to an air-conditioned room from outside where it's hot, and I may experience some of these physical sensations. It's not dangerous, it's not threatening, but I notice the physical sensations and I think, uh-oh. And I enter the panic attack cycle. So, anxious apprehension and avoidance, the two factors that can drive and perpetuate and maintain panic attacks in panic disorder. And in an upcoming video, I'll be talking about ways in which we treat panic disorder, how we use this fear of fear model, and how we use our understanding of anxious apprehension and avoidance to really begin to challenge and treat and address these panic attacks. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas about this, any questions you might have. So please leave me some comments in the comments section down below. If you're enjoying my videos and would like to see more, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be alerted every week when I post a new video. So thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.